if we think about your subjective well-being, so your happiness metric, the strongest correlate to that of all variables is the strength of your relationship with your significant other. Believe me, this is about making money and not being happy. That's not my shtick. So I will stay to my lane. But 0.71 correlation for your subjective well-being and your significant other. 0.71, really, really strong. Now, I do think that a significant part of that is whether your significant other helps you achieve your goals. And so the reason that this is so nasty is that I have had people who came into our companies and were what I thought were going to be stars. And then their significant other derailed them. And the reason that I think it's so insidious is that it's not done out of malice. And I think that's why it's so tricky, is that let's say you have a tough day at work and you go home and your significant other says, enough about your day. Let's talk about my day. Here's a big bowl of ice cream, or, hey, let's go out to dinner, or, hey, let's go see friends, right? All of that seems well-intentioned. The question that we have to ask ourselves is, does this increase or decrease the likelihood that I hit my goals? And I see hitting one's goals as essentially your relationship with yourself, which is why I see goal achievement as the most important thing that you can do in your life. Because it's really just, do you keep your commitments to yourself? And before anyone jumps down my throat, the analogy that I would give is the very classic one, which is that when you're on an airplane, what do they say? You put your air mask on before you help others. And I think that your significant other was likely attracted to you to some degree based on your aspirations, what you want to do with your life. And what's interesting is that they will be attracted to that thing and then also be the source of that demise. They will do things and take actions that make it less likely that you achieve your goals and then complain about the fact that those goals have not been hit. And that's tough. And it's usually because they do not see that what they do hurts you. And I say hurts you not because, again, out of malice, but out of what happens, what occurs. And so this has been something I've been thinking of a lot, so much so that we are considering putting it as a part of our interview process for people coming in. And so if you look at how supportive a spouse is or your significant other, I think that it's not a binary. I see it on a continuum, right? On the absolute worst case, you have somebody who's like, you need to quit that job, you need to quit that place, whatever. Now, under the right circumstances, that could be super encouraging because they're saying you should go pursue your dreams, in which case that's amazing. And they're over here, right? But if that's the main vehicle that you have to like provide for the family and that's your dream or that's your goal, then how terrible is that? And now every time you go home, you're reminded of this, and basically talking about work is punished, which then associates a negative and aversive stimulus with the thing that you need to keep doing in order to hit the goals as a unit, which is kind of a secondary theme that I have around spouses that are on the good side of the continuum, which is that they see you and them as one. And so it's like, we are achieving this goal. We are like, I am taking these sacrifices. I am making money too. And I'm allocating some of my money so that my spouse can do what they want to do. He or she wants to do, right? And that type of unit tends to outperform the people who are kind of solo dolo, right? Like on, again, the extreme, you have somebody who actively tries to destroy. 1 degree, to the left of that is somebody who's passively destroying, which I would say is the same in terms of outcome. Like, hey, don't worry about it. Hey, kick your feet up. Hey, let's just go out this weekend. Let's not think about work. Well, it still results in the same thing, which is you work less and you don't talk about the thing that you care about. Now, if you care about your work, then it would make sense that you should be able to talk about that with the one person who matters most to you in your life, right? But if you can't, it's very lonely. And I think it makes it less likely that your goal is that you stick with it, because it no longer becomes an us thing. It's just a you thing. And then work becomes something that's a take from your relationship. Super tough, because now you have conflicting priorities. You have conflicting reinforcement contingencies. You've got the spouse that whenever you do this other thing, it's taking away from that person. And that's because of how they have framed it. And so if you can have a spouse who frames you working as you loving them, then you win. Because they see you working as you feeding the unit, you feeding our goals, what we want to do with our lives, what impact we want to make as a family. And a family can still be 2 people, but nonetheless. And so on the left, right, you've got the actively destroying. Second, you've got passively destroying. And the only difference I see there is intention, not as outcome. And for me, I care very little about intention personally. Now, to the middle of that, I think you have neutral. And so these are the people that are just like, you do your thing, I do my thing, right? And I think there's kind of two flavors of this. One is you've got a spouse who has their own career or their own business, and they're just running on their path and you're running on yours, which can actually be a very successful pairing as long as you both give each other space to go pursue both of your goals, which then both of you are achieving your best version of yourselves. And then as each of you levels up, you become more and more attracted to the other person because like your stock goes up and so does theirs. Cool. The other version of neutrality I see is that they will not detract. They will not interfere with you achieving your goals. Now, very different from supporting. They just won't get in the way. If you have to work, they say, okay. Now, they're not going to say, hey, honey, don't worry about it. I got it at home, right? Like, I got the kids or I got the whatever's going on. Like, I got this. Go do what you got to do, right? That's supportive. Neutral is understood, right? I'll go figure out what I need to do in the meantime. And you can already guess where the next version of this is, right? Is supportive, which is not, they increase the likelihood that you hit your goals. And so I see, that's how I define support, is that they take interest and they increase the likelihood that you hit whatever goal you set out to do. And so I think many people, some of you guys right now, if you're being honest with yourselves, if you were to answer the question, does having this person in my life increase or decrease the likelihood that I hit my goals? I think some of you might have a very tough set of questions to have. 5 Reddit questions on relationship. Hold on. This thing is nasty. Have you guys seen this? This thing is just absolutely vicious. Okay. So I'm going to give you 5 questions that I think are just destructive and just nuclear bombs. Number 1, if someone tells you that you're a lot like your ex or your current, would you take that as a compliment? Think about it. Number 2, would you allow your future kid to date someone like your spouse? 3, were you able to unapologetically be yourself, or do you have to act like someone else when you are with them? 4, do you like the real them, just their good side, or the idea or potential of them? And then finally, while you are with them, are you fulfilled or are you simply less lonely? And so I think if you can think through those are tough questions to answer. And I'll be clear. I think that every day, like sometimes there are moments where a relationship can get in the rocks. But I think what's interesting about this set of questions is that they zoom out a lot. It's, would you want your kid to date someone like this? Like if someone describes you like them, would you take it as a compliment? That's usually going to take it into like their character, right? The behavior traits they do on a regular basis, right? Do you like the real them or the idea of them? Are you fulfilled or just lonely, right? These are, I think, really good questions when we're thinking about this because I've been fortunate with Layla, and I by no means do I stand here on a pedestal. I want to be very clear here. But she has made it more likely that I hit my goals. And fundamentally, the reason that I ended up marrying her was from that frame. And we actually got married. I probably won't go too much more into this. I don't like talking about relationships very much. But I had a you call it a mindset coach. I think his technical term was an executive coach. I had an executive coach when I was like 26 or 7. And it was before Layla and I got married. And I said, I don't know if I want to be with this girl. It's not like we have this like chemical fireworky chemistry, relationship. But like, I think she's really cool and I like her a lot. And I like being around her. And I feel like I'm better when I'm with her. And he said, well, look at your stats. And so he went category by category. So he's like, how about fitness? Are you working out? And I was like, yeah, she goes to the gym. And so I, basically if I don't want to go, I'll still go with her. And he was like, okay, so you're working out more than you were on your own. I was like, yeah. He's like, okay. He's like, what about food? Are you eating healthier? And I was like, yeah, she's actually, she did a year of culinary school. She likes, cooking for me. She likes baking. She likes doing all that stuff. And but she's like in fitness, so she knows how to make like the kind of stuff that I want to eat. And he was like, that's great, cool. He's like, okay, what about financially? He's like, does she spend a lot of money? I was like, no, actually, she makes me money. Like she not only doesn't spend money, she makes me money, and she helps me go make more money because she handles things that I would normally have to do so that I can go sell more. And he was like, okay. And so we just keep going down this list, and basically all my stats were up. And so that conversation was one of probably 3 moments in my life with Layla that I was like, huh, what if I use the frame of like, does this person help me become the person I want to be, rather than do I have the butterfly tingles and fireworks, which is basically the litmus test that I used for every other relationship that I'd been in my life. And I can tell you that now we've been together 8.5 years, something like that. And I think logic prevails. So I'll explain what I mean by that. Is like, if you are together based on pure emotion, then it means that when the emotions change, you don't want to be together. For us, we have had a logical foundation for why it made sense for me, because my goals have not changed. My goals have remained more or less the same since I got into business. Since I've been almost like in high school, I've wanted to just be successful, grow, make more, be more, right? And at all points in time, no matter how angry, upset, whatever I can be, I have not met anyone who has helped me more than she has. And so in becoming the person I want to become and achieving the things that I want to achieve. And the very first date that we went on, I told her, I'm going to work all the time. And so this will only work if you can spend time with me while I work. And so I think our second date was like a daytime date. I was like, the day after we went on our first date, I was like, you want to hang out tomorrow? I was like, I'm just gonna be working at my place all day. And she said, sure. She said, I've training clients in the morning, and I'll come hang out after lunch. And I said, fine. And so we just worked the rest of the day. And the next day I also worked. And so then she came over and we worked there. And we pretty much spent every single day after that together with no date. So much so that I left and did a launch and came back, and she said, you said you would take me on a date. It's been a month. I'd spent 30 days in a row with her, had not taken her on a date, had just worked next to her. And so to me, very much like, this is me. This is my life. If you want in on this, then great. But like, I'm not going to change this. And I think we look at people in our lives and we ask ourselves, am I willing to make compromises? And I just have not been willing to compromise my goals. And in every situation where I was forced to compromise my goals or feel like it was a tit for tat, we're like, oh, okay, we talked about your day, let's talk about my day. Okay, fine. Let's support both of our careers, whatever it is. When those things, I always felt like I was like, compromise is just both people not getting what they want. Like fundamentally. And so I would rather find a way where we can just both get what we want.